Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hopefully you are all doing great. Today I'm going to talk about another poem named Abhisara the Tryst, written by none other than Rabindranath Tagore. This poem is based on Upagupta, a Buddhist monk who lived in the 300 BCE and was patronized by Emperor Ashoka. In fact, he was the spiritual teacher of the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka. He still has a following in Southeast Asian countries like India, Nepal, Bangladesh and Myanmar. Abhisara the Tryst basically means a private rendezvous between lovers. So now I'm going to read the poem line by line and explain the meaning in detail so that you won't have any problem whatsoever in understanding the poetry. Upagupta, the disciple of Buddha, lay asleep in the dust by the city wall of Mathura. So the poem begins in a straightforward manner, presenting the readers with a story. As I said, it's the story of Upagupta, an ancient Buddhist monk who lived in 300 BCE. One dark night, he was lying asleep on the dusty road by the boundary wall of Mathura city. Lamps were all out, that means lamps were off. Doors were all shut, that means doors were closed. And stars were all hidden by the murky sky of August. That means it was mid-monsoon in August. The stars were not visible due to the cloudy or murky sky. This particular word called murky means cloudy. And the entire city was asleep with all the lamps put out and all doors shut. Whose feet were those tinkling with anklets, touching his breast of a sudden? It means, while Upagupta was in sleep, all of a sudden, someone's feet touched his chest. The ringing sound or the tinkling sound of anklets on those feet made it clear that it was a woman who stumbled upon the body of sleeping Upagupta. He woke up startled. That means Upagupta woke up abruptly, being startled, and a light from a woman's lamp fell on his forgiving eyes. So Upagupta woke up abruptly, being startled by the knock. He saw that it was a woman carrying a lamp in her hand. And by the phrase forgiving eyes, Tagore is basically highlighting the merciful calmness in the monk's eyes. So this phrase is very important, that is forgiving eyes, and it highlights the merciful calmness in the monk's eyes. It was Vasavdatta, the dancing girl, starred with jewels, clouded with pale blue mantle, drunk with the wine of her youth. So the woman was Vasavdatta, the famous dancing girl of Mathura. She was well known for her beauty as well as for her dance. She was wearing a light blue cloth, that is mantle, and shining with jewelry. Her youthful beauty was so fascinating that the poet says she was drunk with the wine of her youth. It may also indicate that Vasavdatta was proud of her youth and appearance. She lowered her lamp and saw a young face, austerely beautiful. So what Vasavdatta did, she lowered the lamp in her hand and saw the face of Upagupta, the hermit. and she was impressed by the austerely beautiful face of Upagupta. Austerely beautiful. That means soberness, self-control, calmness. So Vasavdatta was impressed by the austerity or soberness or calmness, beauty of Upagupta. "Forgive me, young ascetic," said the woman. So clearly Vasavdatta apologized. "Graciously come to my house. The dusty earth is not fit bed for you." So she is inviting Upagupta to come to her house because she believes that the dusty bed or the dusty earth is not suitable for him. The young ascetic answered, "Woman, go on your way. When the time is ripe, I'll come to you." So Upagupta, in reply, told Vasavdatta to return to her house and promised to meet her only when the right time would come. Suddenly, the black night showed its teeth in a flash of lightning. The storm growled from the corner of the sky, and the woman trembled in fear of some unknown danger. So suddenly, the lightning struck with a flash of light in the dark sky. It was as if the black night showed its white teeth. The storm began to blow with growling sound from one corner of the sky. Vasavdatta, quite naturally, got afraid at the sound of the lightning and the blowing storm, and she trembled in fear. So seemingly, she hurried back home without wasting more time. A year had not yet passed. Very important line, because this is the line that marks a shift to a different time. It was evening of a day in April, in spring. So the poet clearly mentions that it was an evening of April and it was springtime now. The branches of the wayside trees were full of blossom. Gay notes of flute came floating in the warm spring air from afar. The citizens had gone to the woods for the festivals of flowers. So here in these lines, Tagore is basically giving a description of the beautiful nature around. Since Tagore was a romantic poet, so obviously he was supposed to give a very idyllic, very beautiful description of nature, and these lines are showing that type of description. The trees were all covered with flowers. The cheerful melody of a flute came floating in the warm spring air from far away. The citizens of Mathura city had gone to the forest to enjoy the festival of flowers, and the full moon was shining over the quiet town. From the mid-sky gazed the full moon on the shadows of the silent town. That means the full moon was shining over the quiet town. The young ascetic was walking in the lonely street. So in that moonlit evening of spring, Upagupta, the ascetic, was walking on the lonely street while overheard the lovesick quails uttered from the mango branches their sleepless plaint. So while Upagupta was walking on the lonely street, the lovesick quail birds on the mango branches were awake and they were voicing their complaints to each other. Upagupta passed through the city gates. That means Upagupta entered the city of Mathura through the city gates and stood at the base of the rampart. That means he stood at the base of the city wall. Was woman lay at his feet in the shadow of the mango grove? So while Upagupta entered the city of Mathura through the city gates and stood at the base of the city wall, suddenly he bumped into a woman lying at his feet in the shadow of the wall. Struck with black pestilence, her body spotted with sores of smallpox. So basically she was suffering from a fatal epidemic and her body was covered with sores, that means wounds. She had been hurriedly driven away from the town to avoid her poisonous contagion. So now she was regarded an outcast and thrown out of the city in order to protect the city from the spread of the epidemic. Understandably, the woman was unattended and was left in the hands of fate. The ascetic sat by her side, took her head on his knees. So what Upagupta did, he sat beside the woman and compassionately placed her head on his knees and moistened her lips with water and smeared her body with sandal balm. And what he did? He tried to ease her pain by hydrating her lips with water and applying balm on her wounds. "Who are you, merciful one?" asked the woman. So Vasavadatta cannot identify Upagupta. She cannot recognize him. And that is why she is asking, "Who are you, merciful one?" Obviously, Vasavadatta was very surprised because the rest of the society had thrown her out. And that is why she wanted to know who the merciful man was. Now, what Upagupta is saying is probably the most beautiful lines of this entire poetry. Upagupta says, "The time at last has come to visit you, and I am here, Vasavadatta," replied the young ascetic. So, Upagupta addressed the woman as Vasavadatta, and it indicates that he clearly recognized the woman whom he had met earlier, and he is saying that the time had finally come to visit her, and that is why he was there. So, in this way, in return to Vasavadatta's display of love and kindness one day, Upagupta shows his selfless love and compassion to the girl when she needs it the most. So, this is how the poem should be explained. Before wrapping up, I would like to point out the major themes of the poem. Obviously, I'm not going to describe this because that would have rather elongate the entire video. So what I'm doing, I am actually talking about the major themes of the poem. As you can see, the major themes of the poem is number one, beauty and ugliness. So in this poem, we have a coexistence of beauty and ugliness. Number two is spirituality and worldliness. Number three is love and duty. And number four is compassion and selflessness. And there are so many figures of speech used in this poem. And the most prominent figures of speech are number one, metaphor, number two, simile, number three, personification, number four, imagery, number five, symbolism, and number six, hyperbole. So this was today's discussion. Hopefully this particular video will help you. Please feel free to share your comments. If you have any suggestion, please put it down in the comment box. And if you believe that this channel is helping you, do subscribe this. Thank you.